Now anyone, and that means you, can really play bongo. Your teacher will be Mr. Bongo himself, Jack Dunn. Count it like this. 1 and 2 and 2, 3, 4. Here's Mr. Bongo with variation A. It's time to try it out with music. That's the beat. Jack demonstrates what happens when the tempo really begins to move. What's that again, Mr. Bongo? Jack, please play it again.
I feel bad for cutting off Mr. Bongo there. Hello there, our users. My name is John Kulas. I'm a 20-year professor of industrial and organizational psychology. I'm an 11-year or so user of R for normal statistical and analytical applications, but for the majority of those 11 years, for the last 8 or 9 years, I've also been using R not just to do the analyses, but to execute full projects. So every week I get together with some people that occasionally stop by. I think I'll probably be getting more compatriots here within the next few months coming up. They'll be stopping by again. But we just hang out and make ourselves available to other people who might be interested in what I refer to as single platform project execution. So consistent with some of these reproducible research standards that have been popular in the soft and social and behavioral sciences here for just the last 10 years or so. They've been popular in the hard sciences for longer, but in the soft sciences, these reproducible research standards have become more and more popular. And so what we're doing is we're trying to promote and just kind of be a resource for people who are interested in building skill in terms of creating a workflow and using workflows that are consistent with this reproducible research standard. And so for me, a big part of that is actually using the same platform that you are doing your primary quantitative work in to do the rest of your work. So to actually envelop those quantitative analyses and write about them and document them and summarize them. And so we're here every Tuesday, usually, so we're early tonight. So I have a conflict, so we're an hour early, and I'm going to have to cut this pretty hard end on this at 6 o'clock Central here for me tonight. But usually we hang out for about an hour, and we do use this metaphor of an academic office hour. The people that pop by, I mentioned I was a professor for 20 years, a full-time professor, and many of the people that pop by and our guests here, co-hosts, we met through through academic associations, and so we're just holding office hours essentially. And if there's anyone out there who's interested in doing this, and maybe you don't know how to get started, or maybe you're already doing this but just want some ideas on capabilities, we're here for an interactive kind of Q&A. Hey, Kulas, I'm thinking about doing this, and I'm stuck, or how do I get started? We're here for that. And so, in the absence of any sort of questions like that or any sort of back and forth, what we have been doing is we've been covering just single topics every week. And so a few weeks ago, I went back to basics and I think I'll do this periodically as long as I keep going with these weekly sessions. As I went back to basics, and we called it the ABCs of using your analytical platform to author. So to actually, again, wrap everything you do qualitatively with words and with description and with pictures and with visuals. So we call that the ABCs, and we're talking about fundamentals. And so what I'm going to do here, I think, is I'm going to continue past the ABCs, and we'll cover the D's, E's, F's all the way up to Z. And then maybe it'll be the end of the world at that point, right? So there's only 26 possible we can do in terms of going to Z. But tonight we're on F, and we're covering a single feature. And I found when we were covering ABCs and I was talking about different formats that you could focus on, I found a listing of some formats that are for very specific purposes. So I call it funky formats. That's if you watch this, I kind of take liberty a little bit with words sometimes. So there's nothing really funky, I don't think, about what we're going to cover, but certainly very specific and peculiar. And hopefully we'll see some capabilities of what these authoring platforms can do, not just analytically, but document wise as well. And so we'll check out some funky formats tonight. That'll be fun. I haven't looked at them yet. I've just seen a listing of them. I haven't tried them. And again, that's kind of consistent with the philosophy of this weekly session, is I want to have these unscripted, and I want to have these focused on an issue, not as a tutorial, but as just open exploration. And so because of that, what we'll also do is each week we'll spend the first half, hopefully if I'm not too verbose, it won't be a full half of the hour, but I'd say 20 to 25 minutes we'll spend on recapping what did happen the previous week. And that is structured in a little bit more of a linear, kind of more traditional tutorial kind of way. But before we get to what happened last week, we have to have a transition. So let's get our transition here.
Last time, you remember, the citizens of Frostbite Falls had the shock of their lives when every TV antenna in town mysteriously disappeared. Their reaction was instantaneous.
Our lives are ruined.
Some people refused to admit that the terrible thing had happened and sat doggedly before their sets anyway. Others resorted to ingenious methods of substitution.
So remember, friends, get Johnson's foist binders in the red and blue box.
Oh, that's great, Henry. Now do the one about the dog food.
Still others didn't notice any change at all.
Love these sea stories.
But the most mysterious thing of all was the way the antennas had disappeared.
You may not believe this, boys, but every one of them was bitten off.
Bitten off?
You mean there's some metal-munching monster loose in this town?
Now, let's not jump to conclusions, boys. There's probably some logical explanation.
They say, I don't know who they is, but it is said that time is cyclical. Right? Have you ever heard that? I've been hearing that more as we talk about metaphysics and philosophy and just kind of like what's going on in the world. But the whole antenna thing. So antennas obviously recently haven't been as important as they were in the 1960s. But so they went away for a long time, and now they're back. So I have antenna. I don't have cable. I don't do streaming, but I have antennas. So I do over the air TV, and then I'm talking to more and more of my Gen Xers, so maybe that's a Gen X thing. We're going back to antennas. So if there were a metal munching monster that was after my antenna, I would be upset because then I wouldn't be able to see Rocky and Bullwinkle, and I love Rocky and Bullwinkle. The slides, as always, are in the comments or chat. I got one of these weeks. I got to learn the proper terminology. To me, I see comments. I think it's also called chat. Um, and I know most people that interact with me in these sessions tend to do it not live, but after the fact. So if you're accessing this immediately after it's done, I the comments might not be populated. So because of that, in the description of the video, there's always also, as long as I don't forget, and I'm kind of absent-minded, but I'll try to remember to include a link to these slides in the description as well. And those of you that have been following along, if you, by the way, we're up to 96 subscribers, or I'm not even sure what it's called. I think it's subscribers. People who are affiliated with the channel. So thank you so much. That's awesome. I love it. That's again, as a mere professor who's been promoting this kind of workflow and not always to enthusiasm, with class sizes ranging from 20 to 30. It's amazing to me that there's close to 100 people who might be interested in this kind of thing. So I'm very happy. So thank you. I appreciate that. But so the link to the slides is always posted in the comments. Ideally, it's going to be commonly in the description. But those of you that have been, the reason I went on that tangent, those of you that have been following and watching, you may have noticed a pattern. So the URL is very predictable. So if you ever just want to grab an old one, for example, the URLs are just dates. And again, thank you to Posit. If anyone from Posit ever stumbles across these, I'm very curious to know if anyone from Posit ever has, or if they care, or if they appreciate it, or if they think I should be doing something different. But anyway, if anyone from Posit does stumble across this, thank you for the resources, because I do feel guilty sometimes about just the sheer number of things I have up on your free hosting site, and I appreciate it, and it's a great resource to have for someone like me. So thank you. So last week, what we did was we took a look at embeddings, and we took a look at embeddings only within HTML products. So by embedding, what I mean is, and last week we used the terminology of a parent and a child document. That's sometimes used in coding contexts as well. But I think it works here. So the parent document is the one that you're focused on, that you're building and crafting a story for your project. And maybe you want to reference an older project or something you've done that's similar or something that's relevant. So embedding is within the current thing you're working on, taking something else that you've already worked on and including it. And so we talked about two different ways, and of course, everything that we do in R, there's more than just one way to do things. There's more than two ways to do things. But the two ways that we reviewed last week that I've been using, it turns out that I'm glad that we looked over this, because I now think that there are probably two different use cases. Instead of viewing these as two different options to do the same thing, which is embed a different document within your focal document, I think that there really are kind of two best use cases here for these two options. So native now within Quarto, and we believe this is something that was enveloped within current versions of Quarto from an extension that was created by a prolific contributor to these sorts of products. His name's, he goes by the Codeless Professor. So Codeless Professor, Posit, thank you, and Codeless Professor also thank you for the good products and good things that you're providing to people like me and people like us. So the Codeless Professor had created this capability to embed things within documents, and that's now fully functional within Quarto. And you're going to use, and we saw this with Iconify as well, the Iconify extension that I love and I've been using frequently now. The syntactic structure that is used is these double curly brackets and then angle brackets. So there's three opening and closing. Normally I might be tempted to call these fences, but because we're operating within a publishing software that uses those terms fences a little differently, I'm just going to call them brackets. So this opening curly curly angle and this closing angle curly curly is a convention that's shared with this embedding capability, as well as Iconify, the extension, which hopefully Quarto will fold into future versions like Embedio has been. But so the actual syntactic structure is quite straightforward, and the function itself is just embed, and then you call out within your project directory the thing that you want to embed. And so with this function, with this capability, I think what we found last week is this capability is probably most powerful, and you're going to be most tempted to use it if there's a targeted element of a previous project that you want to include. So the targeted element is identified by this pound and then information here. So the information that is being included here is there's a Penguins notebook. So this would be a Python authored thing that you're trying to embed. But within that notebook, there's a chunk, there's a code chunk, and that code chunk has a label of fig bill scatter. And so what the focal document will do is, as long as the Penguins notebook is within the same working directory that you're working within, it'll go and find that notebook, and it'll find the fig bill scatter chunk, and it will present within your focal document what the results of that chunk are. And that's super cool. The other thing it does is it gives you a link to the broader document. So it'll create, even if the original document, even if this, what we might call a child document, even if this is not an HTML product, for example, if it's a PDF, what this embed function does is it will create an HTML version of this. And so that's then accessible. The entire thing is going to be accessible in the sidebar of your HTML document. And so that was something that we weren't really expecting, but that was something that was really, really neat. And so you don't need to isolate just a specific code chunk from a broader document. You can include the entire document as well. However, I think after looking at what we looked at last week, what my recommendation would be, if you're making a choice between these two different alternatives to embed something within a focal HTML document, I think what I would say would be go ahead and use embed if you're interested in only a targeted element of a previous project. And now the wonderful thing is it's going to actually create a duplication or an HTML version of the entire project that's accessible as well. So it's there if you want to reference it, but it's not going to be fully reproduced unless the user accesses it. So if there's just a targeted element that you're interested in including, I would say go ahead and use this embed function. It's great. Otherwise, if you're interested in the entire document, this iframe structure is just, I've been using it so frequently and it's so great. It's so slick. There's a hyperlink here on the actual iframe heading itself if you'd like to learn a little more about it. Last week, I think this hyperlink actually goes to last week's slides. So I'm kind of self-referencing here a little bit, but it tells you how to structure the iframe if you're interested in that. Now, this week is going to be confusing because I have so much embedded. I have embeddings upon embeddings upon embeddings. And so I used iframe to actually embed last week's slides. And you can see the full slide deck here within this week's slides. So this is a true embedding of an entire project, the one that we went over last week, within this week's project. And it's a very, very simple specification in terms of getting that to function within an HTML file. The only real trick is that this source document should be located within your project directory. Alternatively, you can grab it from a hosted site, which let's check and see. I don't remember what I did, honestly. So this is the QMD that made this week's slides. And here's the iframe that is actually, see if I can get my preview. These previews have been horrid on, actually this one's pretty good. But the previews within RStudio upon more recent editions and versions of RStudio have been really wonky. That wasn't the case always, but it's been the case with the last couple of versions of RStudio that I've used. But this one looks fine. So the code here on line 76, iframe, and then source, I actually did just pull this from the hosted site. This is the link that I usually share with everyone each week, so you can access the slides. Now I did a little bit of tinkering with the width and height of it, just so it actually plots okay on the space here. But what is actually rendered is full access to that slide deck itself. Everything in here is functional. Some of it may be a little squeezed in terms of rendering in the space of it itself, but I can go ahead and copy from these code chunks. I can go ahead and navigate this PDF that this thing that we embedded last week. So last week we embedded a PDF document within our slides. This week there's a slide that embeds the PDF embedded within this week's slides. Whoo! Talk about meta. So the iframe capability, if you're in a HTML file and you just want to provide full access to the full document of something else. Now this doesn't need to be a slide deck. This could be a PDF document. This could be really anything. The iframe capability takes a lot of different types of objects. So just, it's wonderful. I love it. So I would say if you're interested in embedding a previous project within a current project, think about whether you only want to include an aspect of that previous project. If so, this embed function works well, and there's no longer any extension needed. If you just have the current version of Quarto on your machine, you can go ahead and use this syntactic structure and just call out the original document and then also the code chunk. So make sure to give your code chunks labels is the only, I guess, caveat there. But if you're interested in including the entire document, man, these iframes are great. And then again, the other caveat, I guess, is we were focused on embedding things within HTML products. And so if you're interested in embedding things within a typist document or a PDF document, there's a different approach that you would want to take. And so again, if anyone's interested in that, drop me a note. I had a very nice note from someone this weekend who said they're appreciating some of the stuff. So thank you so much. I love hearing from people. It makes me feel good. It gives me a little reinforcement for doing this instead of me just sitting here talking. So thank you. But if there's on that note, if there's anyone that's interested in learning how to embed or just having a session on embedding things within different types of documents, not HTML documents, drop me a note and we can certainly go over that. That's kind of what I want to do on these weekly sessions is I want people to ask, how do I do something? And then we discover it collectively. So that's an open invitation there. So today what we're going to do is take a look at, and again, it's kind of cavalier with the use of this word funky. These aren't, I guess I don't know because I haven't looked at them. Coincidentally, on my stereo right now, I have some very funky music playing. Kind of sounds like Inagata Davida. I don't know. Missed it. It was stereo, so the funky guitar was actually on the right-hand speaker, and I put this, well, there it goes again. I don't know. Anyway, it's very funky. It's very timely. The formats themselves, I'm not sure if they're going to be funky or not, but let's check it out. So let's actually see. So funky formats, I think I came across when I was looking for a resource to communicate the different types of formats that are capable of being produced when you follow these sorts of workflows that we're promoting. So these workflows that are fully executed within your traditionally considered to be analytical platform. There are kind of a standard listing of types of documents that are legacy, historical, well-known, yes, we can do that type documents. We've been focusing on HTML and PDF documents primarily, but we've also talked about slides, Reveal.js slides for the most part. The slides that you have access to that I've been creating are Reveal.js slides. They're so fun. They're just so much fun. I can't even kind of as a thought exercise think about going back to something like PowerPoint or Google Slides. It's just these Reveal.js slides are so much fun. But so the top listing here in terms of documents and presentations, this is kind of what's in the forefront of, I think, probably most people's minds when they think about the types of things that can be produced using these procedures. These are I would imagine, these are the common ones. These are the typical ones. These are what most people do. And again, speculation on my part, but I think that's a reasonable kind of assumption. Now, this list, however, is quite large. So there are many other types of documents and things that can be produced. So what I wanted to do tonight was just check these out. I have not checked these out. So I don't even know what these look like, but I thought we should go ahead and take a look. Now, let's do something else to challenge ourselves here. So the IDE that I prefer and I've been using 99% of the time is RStudio. We have had a couple of sessions where we played around a little bit with Positron. And so just to mix things up a little bit, I opened it up today kind of accidentally. I kind of forgot about it. So I think maybe, again, just to expose everyone to a different kind of look, let's see what we can do here within Positron. Now, I actually already see something different here. I do not remember this welcome kind of screen. This is different. So Positron and IDE for data science. We want to start. Okay, what do you want to start with? That's fine. I did apparently have a different project in here that I was working on. I don't even remember that. But this what it's directing me to, or what it's saying was a recent file, was actually a project that I definitely would be working on. We're going to stay away from Git, I think. Last week I also mentioned, that I think the terminology for projects might be a little bit different in Positron. And I think I was confusing Positron with VS Code, which is very similar to Positron. I'm not even going to go there. But I think what we want to do, let's just create a new file. And the menu and the options that we're getting are a little different. I think we want a Quarto document. And this is interesting. Now, when we're in RStudio and we create a Quarto document, it comes pre-populated with some content. There's nothing here. So there's no content here. I'm also not getting my render button, so we're going to have to actually render through the terminal, which I don't think I want to do that. All right, let's hold off on that. Well, there's more of a this looks foreign kind of thing than I probably want to address tonight. So I'll try to set up Positron so we don't necessarily have to go through the terminal. So I didn't think about that. I don't want to do that because that just looks scary. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of these and see. see what they look like. So, we haven't actually done any of these other presentations. Reveal.js presentations, everyone out there should know what these look like because you've been looking at them every week. But if we're in our studio now and I go to Quarto presentation, they're going to give me three types. The default is the Reveal.js, so we'll go ahead and create that. And again, here you see the pre-populated standard template boilerplate content, which I think is nice because you can go ahead and render this. And I'm going to put all of these in on my desktop on one of my user profiles here. I've kind of been putting stuff here, just, I don't know. It's like, it's like, we'll just call it funky and I'll keep overriding it. But it's kind of like just piling dishes and stuff in like kitchen counter, right? That's what this desktop is. It's a kitchen counter full of cluttered objects that need to be washed or put away. And so if you use your keyboard, or if you're on a phone, I think it's swiping probably, you can go ahead and navigate this. That's what a Reveal.js presentation looks like. PowerPoints, I have never done a PowerPoint within Quarto because I kind of hate because I love Reveal.js so much. The primary reason I haven't. So let's go ahead and the easiest way to do this is just to swap out the line 3 format of what we want, and it should give us what we want. I'm curious about the preview because I don't have Microsoft products on this machine, so we'll see if we can even access it. But we'll go ahead and do a new file again, Quarto presentation. This time we'll ask for a PowerPoint, and I'll create that. And here it's the same information. It's the only thing that's changed is this line 3. It's called a PPTX instead of Reveal.js. You can see when I flip there between the two tabs, none of this content, line 6 through 12, is changed, but the PPTX has changed. So let's go ahead and render that. It's going to want a different, unfortunately, name. So we'll call it Funky2. We'll call it Medina. Does anyone get that reference? I don't know how to spell Medina, but that's a funky called Medina right there. So on my computer, the preview is going to be tough because, again, I don't have PowerPoint. It did give me something. I could open it up within Google Slides, which is how I usually access that. But I don't think we need to spend time on that tonight. If you're interested in PowerPoint presentations, you can also create those using these procedures we've been talking about. The reveal is so neat because it maintains those HTML capabilities. There's interactive opportunities there, and so that's probably the primary reason that I don't think I would go back to PowerPoint. The reason to use PowerPoint is that's what everyone in the business world wants. In my Gen Xer experience, so it's possible maybe I'm missing out on something, and within the last 5 to 7 years, maybe that's changed. I really kind of doubt it. But Beamer presentations are going to present. They're going to look like reveal slides, but it's going to be in a PDF format. So we can try that. So let's go ahead and try. I keep struggling with the Windows and the user kind of pull down menus because it is a little inefficient once you get used to using this system of kind of plain text editing thing. So writing all of this script, the helpful wizards kind of become more nuisance than helpful. Just to give everyone kind of solace here, or confirmation, I guess, I'm flipping between the tabs, and just to show you that all that's changing is that line 3 format. And the reason I'm doing that is I don't want to further clutter my counter full of dirty dishes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the format in in these new things that we're creating, and I'm just going to put it in one that's already created. Sorry, I'm cheating a little bit, but again, I just got too many things. So this one we should be able to get a preview on. So I do have, if you're interested in producing PDFs using these procedures, you're going to need a PDF compiler. And so the one that works really, really well across different things that you want to produce using these procedures is called TinyTech. And it's just a package. So you load it like normal packages in your R Studio or R Session. TinyTech. You go ahead and install that. And then there is one other thing you need to do with that. It's a little different than most packages. Your full capability are not there just upon install. What you need to do after you install a package is in your console, you need to you need to do an install of that. So you need to do TinyTech 2: is saying the function that I'm about to give you is located within the TinyTech package that I just accessed. And so what I want to do there is install underscore TinyTech, open and close parentheses, hit return, and then you're good. Then you can go ahead and render all the PDFs that you want to do. And if you can't, drop me a note and I'll help you problem solve it. So I do have TinyTech installed. I do have I do have the package, and I do have the capability installed as well. So we'll go ahead and just see if we can render this. I didn't want to reinstall it because, well, for a couple of different reasons. But there we see, I've never actually looked at a Beamer presentation. It's kind of neat. I like where it, by default, you can see the format's quite different in terms of the bullets and the titles as well. The titles are being put up in this upper left-hand corner of each slide. Now, one of the neat things about PDFs, of course, is that you're going to get this automatic outline generated. So you should be able to either look at, the outline for me is not, looks like it's a little frozen, but you should be able to toggle between that slide output and a more traditional kind of table of contents-ish outline. Okay, so those presentations. What I really wanted to get to were these things down here. And so GitHub flavored Markdown. I've heard a lot about this. And the language that we're using to do all of this stuff is a derivative of two different traditions as far as I can tell. And I'm putting together the history of this for a resource that I'm hoping to create, because I think it's important to have something like an academic resource to walk us through this as reproducible research becomes more of an expectation and a standard. And there's not a lot out there in the soft social and behavioral sciences that are instructional or helpful for how to actually structure your work to be conducive, consistent, conforming to these reproducible research standards. Now, journals are, increasingly saying things like, give us your script, give us your data. That's helpful. But to me, kind of jumping in the deep end is this. It's your entire project is scripted, it's available, it's all created using the same process. So there's two traditions that kind of have informed where we're at today. One is tech, which was created by Donald Knuth, and then the other is Markdown, which is created by Gruber. I forget Gruber's first name. Mark, perhaps, Gruber? But so when we see GitHub flavored Markdown, there are different kind of dialects of Markdown. R had a flavor of Markdown called R Markdown. And so there's a GitHub flavored Markdown. There's a Gruber original Markdown. Hans. His name should be Hans, right? Gruber. Okay, so what I'm seeing here is I'm seeing lines. The lines are a little different in terms of lines between the headings. Now this is something that you can get as well in terms of formatting options and themes of your document. But I'm sure there's other flavors. That to me doesn't look all that different. Common mark, and just bear with me here on some of these probably not so interesting ones before we get to the, I think, more interesting kind of uh, very specific purpose applications. Look at this common mark. Common mark, I love you. You look like you're a typewriter. I love that. Oh, I mean it's just Markdown. I mean, it looks like Markdown. It's still it's just retaining all of the Markdown. It's not actually being translated into a formatted document. And again, we could explore kind of philosophy and background and things and I will need to do that when I'm putting this resource together. But for now, the next 15 minutes that we have here, we don't need to do that. The thing that really kind of strikes me is that there are specific format acceptances or acknowledgments or capability. There's actual format recognizing. That's definitely not the right word, but there's so many different format values that can go into that format field. It's more than just PDF. It's more than just HTML. It's more than just typist, and it's kind of hidden. So that's not something, again, that is. I don't think it's something that's very well communicated or acknowledged among people that use this quite a bit. Now, some of these I'm seeing there's a little more work that's required in them, and some of them, the examples look like they are assuming Python. Now, that should not affect us, other than we have code chunks down here that are saying specifically R. So I didn't try the Hugo one, for example. And again, so this is not entirely unexpected. So some of these formats are going to be strange. So some of these formats, for example, we saw this with the PowerPoint. The PPTX format, same as DocX or even XLSX, the extensions on the Microsoft products. If you don't have those, if you don't have that software installed on your local machine, you might have difficulty pulling up the actual document or getting a good, clean preview of the document. I don't even know what this thing is, so I'm not gonna have it. Notepad generally is kind of what you want to use as the default going ahead and opening up. This is just giving me my QMD itself. It's not showing me the rendered product there. So again, the Markdown parts of this I wasn't so interested in, but it's interesting to see that you can use Markdown to produce different Markdown. So my assumption is you're producing a source document that can then be fed into a different processor to read that language, to read that dialect of Markdown. So that's really cool. That's really neat. And for those people that use GitHub quite a bit, you might actually be interested in taking a Quarto authored document and rendering it as a GitHub file, because this information you should be able to go ahead and port over directly into GitHub in something like a README file or something that further describes what your repository is focused on. So that's pretty neat. Okay. So let's get to the more interesting stuff. We have wikis. So wikis I really wanted to check out. Media wiki. It's the native format. So let's see what a media wiki looks like. I don't know what any of these things look like. And let's do one other thing. Let me put an image in here so we can see what images render like as we're doing this. Okay. So again, this is this is super neat. This does not look neat, but it's super neat. So if you were someone that was a developer or a contributor on Wiki, this is the format that they're going to want you to make. This is the format that the Wiki is expecting in order to render it and present it in its HTML. So that's super cool. So when we see these, so images are going to be interesting because I wasn't really expecting this. I wasn't really expecting most of what we look at to give us Markdown in a different language, or I wasn't expecting an output to be used as an input for some other purpose, and that's what we're seeing here. So let me put a picture in here. Let's get, what do we want for a picture? Any suggestions? We're doing Markdown. We talked Hans Gruber. Hans Gruber. Oh, Hans Gruber I think is from, Die Hard. That's what I was thinking. Hans Gruber. That's also Professor Snape, right? I'm going to right click on Snape. He's about to fall to his untimely death. You know what? He was a great actor and he did actually die. So let's give him a little more dignity here. So believe it or not, I've never seen Die Hard. I hear it's great, and I know it's become like controversially a Christmas movie, right? And I don't even think seasonal or holiday. I think it's actually Christmas. I've heard people say that, and I've heard people debate that whether it is or not. Anyway, it must be one of those movies that's shown around Christmas. Same thing like Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. It's kind of become a Thanksgiving movie. Anyway, Hans. I'm going to go ahead and copy your address by right-clicking, and then we're going to use our convention of exclamation point, square bracket, and then parentheses, and then we're going to go ahead and put Hans Gruber in there. We will just render an HTML file before we get into some of these more funky formats to make sure that Hans is there, as he should be, looking studly. Okay. And then, again, the expectation is we might not see a rendering of Hans on many of these because it looks like many of these are giving us input to a different for a different purpose. Jira Wiki, I don't know what Jira is. Look at, I'm blown away that they have this many built in, and I'm curious how they came to accommodate this many different formats. Again, you're seeing this looks like it's input into a different Markdown reader, but it's great that that's actually there. So the wikis look like they're all going to be giving you Markdown to feed into whatever hosting site has the information. You know what we should have done for a picture? We should have done Wicket. Let's put a picture of Wicket on there as well. Talking wikis. Think if there's a cartoon Wicket. Because, we've kind of evolved into this illustration or cartoon-ish kind of visuals that we have. I don't like any of these, actually. He's supposed to be a fierce warrior. There, he's not so bad. Let's get a picture. We'll use that picture of Wicket. Wicket for Wiki. And again, so getting a lot of weird stuff on these URLs, but if we render this as our very flexible, very conformable, very kind of open to errors and scripting and things, HTML file, we should see it. Okay. All right, so wikis, that's good to know. They're giving you information that can be fed to the wiki. Let's look at some of these other formats. Now, Jupyter is going to give us information in Jupyter notebook format. And again, it shouldn't have images in there. Whoa. No, it's going to open Positron for that. Look at that. So again, the the issue that we talked about your computer looking for extensions, and so this is probably, yeah, an IP. It's a Jupyter Notebook extension, and that looks really cool with that black background, doesn't it? I mean, it looks very similar to the HTML file. And actually, if we did a dark theme on this, I'm not sure dark is actually a theme. We'll see if we get an error. I get confused because dark and light are, I think they're actually fields, not values, that can be used. What's going on here? I think there should be a night, shouldn't there? So I'm still using the good old Google search instead of, here's my options. Darkly, I think, is what I was looking for. And I think I have my YAML structure the way I want it. There we go. So we're not necessarily going to get the full theme here in terms of fonts, but we'll get that black background. I'm just curious to see what this looks like next to the Jupyter Notebook, which is kind of cool looking as well. It does look quite similar, doesn't it? The fonts are different, for sure. Okay, so that's a Jupyter Notebook. Let's see what else we got here. So I'm gonna have to go here soon, and thanks for bearing with me. I know tonight's not. I don't know if tonight's all that helpful, but it is interesting to see these different format capabilities. Now RTF, I'm assuming this is like a Word document. RTF, rich text format. There we go. And again, because I don't have Microsoft Word, I'm guessing that some of this stuff is coming through a little different on my computer than it would on someone's computer that is actually a normal grown-up and has Microsoft products. What you see is what you get. So this is going to be markup again, ASCII. This will be interesting. Looks like there's two of them. We'll do ASCII Doctor. ASCII is an old typesetting language that again kind of looks like it's Arial font. There's some great ASCII art out there if you want to do a Google search on ASCII art. There was a tradition when email first became a thing. Man, I'm old. But when email first became a thing, there was a tradition of people, instead of or in lieu of or before signatures became ridiculous. Like signatures are kind of ridiculous now on emails. But when emails first started, one of the things people would do would be to include ASCII art at the bottom of their email instead of signatures or in addition to signatures. So we're seeing a lot of Markdown. So, I wasn't sure what most of these would actually look like. I was curious to know if these would look more like templates in terms of the output. So we've talked about templates, for example, for conference manuscripts. We've talked about templates for journal articles, copy edited journal articles, and what those actually look like. Now this is hilarious. This looks like a big error, but it's not. This is legit. So this is not an error. This is what we're supposed to get. Interesting. So wow. I wish I could read that, but I can't. I'm illiterate in graph manuscript or whatever the heck I clicked on. Fiction book. I thought we could do. Thought there would be more of these options. Let's see what that looks like, and then we'll probably just call it for tonight. So it's interesting, these different formats. So again, there's probably a good reason that HTML, PDF are the to primary go-to, yeah, that's probably what I want to create. To a lesser extent, Word documents or PowerPoint presentations. What we're seeing with these other allowances, with Quarto having built-in acceptance of these different formats, is they're not giving us necessarily the end product, but they're giving us what needs to be fed into that secondary engine. So it's interesting. I'm glad to know that, because if I want a particularly formatted end product, I'm still going to go to the old standard route, which is a template. So templates are different, and templates are getting your output to look to have a specific look and feel. It's what theme is it? It's what fonts are used. It's what are the margins? What are the colors? And so we'll continue to use templates for that. So I don't know. We're only on F right now, so it'll be a while before we get to templates, but I could probably fudge it somehow if someone's really interested and wants to move that up. We could next week is G. We could call it Great Templates or the Great Templar Template or something like that. Anyway, I got to go. Thanks for bearing with me, everyone. Appreciate it. Next week, we'll be back to the normal time, 7 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock Central. And as always, if there's something that you're curious or interested in seeing in terms of capability, or just how do you do it, or what are some options, just drop me a note and we'll take a look at it. That's what we're here for. All right. Thanks, everybody. Good night.